It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CcHUB.
Last week, we began a very interesting conversation on driving foundational infrastructure investments for EdTech growth. And this week, we will continue from where we stopped. And we are so happy that we could pull back the Olarewajus to the studio again this week. And we'll basically be continuing from where we left off last week. Okay. And this week, we'll be highlighting the roles of private sector players in contributing to power solutions, affordable hardware, and internet access to expand, connectivity for teaching and learning. And before we came on air, we were having, very animated conversation. And I feel we should just take it from there. Okay. Last week, some of the things that you both highlighted was when I asked the question about strategies, to support digital infrastructure for teaching and learning. And there was the bit around, we cannot even talk about getting new things if we don't talk about maintenance and ensuring that people are held accountable for the 5 devices, for the 4 devices, for the generating sets that you have, for the solar panels that you have. You know how to use them effectively and you can maintain them. And going back to what you said, Olaremaji, the teacher, where you said you have public schools that have up to 100 students in class. There will never be a time where we will get 100 devices for 100 learners spread across maybe 4 arms of GSS 1 or GSS 2, right, in Nigeria. That's not our current reality. So it's how are we even designing, sharing systems that are effective for the teachers and for the learners as well. So as we dive into the conversation this week, I want to pick up from this conversation we're having, off air and bring it, to our listeners. We were talking about the role of connectivity, and ISPs and device partners in lowering entry barriers for EdTech. And I was giving a lot of examples, how you have buy now, pay later models, and for devices, for instance, and zero rating for internet ISPs to get people on board. How feasible is this, for us here in Nigeria? Because when you think about the role of private sector players, that's how it comes in. There will never be a time where, we have it all figured out. But there are various models that exist that other countries are using and it seems to pay. So you hear that people buy the latest phones in the Western world, or you're having these new laptops that come out. But they are payment models that have been established. What is limiting us from doing this in Nigeria? Why are we not having banks? Why are we not having, these big telcos coming to the drawing table, which was what you mentioned last week? The EdTech are saying this is what to cost us. How can you zero rate internet for schools? How can you say if you want to use a particular type of device because you're a school, we give you
a concession?
Yes, a concession. So you, the businessman, let's hear from you.
All right. So I would leave Larry to deal with the public schools.
Yes.
So I will talk of the private institutions.
And the private, a business owner that provides power and connectivity.
Yes. So from what we said now, it's clear that costs and acquiring outrightly is a big problem, right? And putting some proper financial infrastructure around it can also help to boost the technical infrastructure. Now, the major concern is the risk factor. So this is not new. You will see a lot of banks that would have tried some of these initiatives, and some of them draw back, and some are excited and they could continue. And to try to find a perfect mix. So, for example, I work in renewable energy. The upfront cost is massive, is enormous. But along the line, maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, it would save a lot of money. But pulling that cash and disrupting the cash flow affects a lot of schools. So what we did in some institutions, for private institutions, that, we started on the energy cost. This you spend, let's say, 100 naira a month on power. How can we make sure that we bring that bill down to at least 18 naira per month? And of that 18 naira per month, you are putting out like 16 naira to pay towards the ownership of your renewable energy system, which is more sustainable. So that sometimes we've seen institutions that as early as 13, 15 months, they've paid off the costs of the renewable energy system that can last them about 10 years. That didn't disrupt the school's cash flow. They didn't have to go get a loan with some very high interest. There's still some small interest on that, but the structure eased them into renewable energy systems. And that can also cut across some other infrastructure, internet connectivity. Can the cost of equipment also be spread on their subscription over a period of time and having a clear contract? And that would be groundbreaking and pave the way for better infrastructure in the schools.
So what is limiting these conversations?
Trust. So
Trust
let's
on
say
whose part now?
Trust on the part of the let's say the benefactors.
Okay.
So meaning that, for example, if I decide to go into that space as a finance person, and I finance 5 schools, and out of 5 schools, 4 of them defaulted. I have
Defaulted
no way
in
defaulted in
payment.
payment
Okay.
back. I have no way of. We were able to do that because we built relationship over a decade with the schools. So it's not just email. These are people that we know one-on-one. These are school administrators that they can call me on speed dial. I can call them on speed dial. They can tell us their problems and we can understand it. But thinking that at scale is a major problem. Going to a school that you don't know entirely from day one, and they give you some doctored statements of accounts. You've done your own background check. Oh, yeah, this school is good. Then you approve a financial like a disbursement for the same infrastructure. And before you know it, you start changing the school. Oh, sorry, madam's out of the country. Oh, sorry, we'll come back. So if that trust can be built by meaning that those who are going through those kind of infrastructural support now, doing it diligently because of those who are coming behind them. For every school that has gotten a sort of loan, maybe a facility to deploy computer labs, don't use it to go and paint. If you are taking a loan for computer labs, set up that laboratory. Let there be positive outcomes. Let these people be excited and let them be encouraged to do more.
So I hear you, Larry, the CEO, but I do not agree because these problems exist, will continue to exist, and there has to be a way, in your own words, that we de-risk, these investments. And it still brings us back to, creating models, right? What can we do? Are there other ways we can look at these things, to see how this would work? I want to give you an example, right? You know how in the West, you hear about credit scores.
Yes.
And if you're a Nigerian, you like to buy your things in full. You have 1 million naira, you're going to take that 1 million naira to buy the latest phone. But that's not how it happens. So you see people using up-to-date, latest devices, but they don't pay in full because they are encouraged to build a credit score.
Yes.
Do you think we need a credit score system for schools? For individuals, to get them on board?
Technology devices.
Yes.
So I think, yes, we have some credit bureau already existing, but that might be a higher level. The lower level is that I think when we sit down with data that's currently with most of these are microfinance, smaller tech banks, like the ones that just became unicorn, don't mention brand names now. So you notice that they sit on a lot of data. Some of them give loans. Someone that is faithful with a 5K loan will most likely be faithful with 10K loan and upwards
Exactly.
like that.
Yes.
And I think that data can really give us a lot of insight into understanding the behavioral pattern of persons and entities.
Yes.
To see, okay, if you've taken a loan from a bank before, when did you pay it and how soon
How
did you pay it back?
Yeah.
And that can now be extended because if that data is shared with me in the private sector, I want to deploy solar systems to school, it will cost me 200 million. And I know that this person has just taken a 50 million naira loan and paid it off within 6 months, no defaults and the likes. I'll be encouraged. Okay, yes, you built a track record and upwards, I can really consider and rely on that data. But without any clear information, it's difficult to make decisions. And
So this is something that, because when you think about it, you've mentioned, how you might deploy your solution to a school and this school owner is in Timbuktu and they say, proprietor is not around.
He's not around, he can't get
proprietor
paid.
has traveled. But imagine when a school who maybe took a loan to buy 5 devices, effectively paid it back, and here's a documentation that goes, shows that you're able to do it, and they're able to build a scoring system so that they know how much more they can get based on where they stand, and they're encouraged. If you get this, you pay back, you get access to more. It could be a way that we are opening up, people like you have the services and people who need the services and getting them into that, pool where they can work. And I'm so thinking, this doesn't also work for even entities.
Yes,
think
private
about
entities.
people who borrowed
that's where
airtime
they are
rather.
based off. Yes.
You borrow 50 naira, you borrow 200 naira, you borrow and you do not pay back. So imagine if, the telcos are able to sell that Kazim borrowed 500 naira
and
it took him 5 years to pay back. So when Kazim comes to maybe a telco and says, I want to get a loan to get your
smartphone.
5G modem, they say, okay, let's check,
Let's check our records.
and they see that Kazim, you're still owing 500 naira.
Yes.
I think these are ways that you could encourage, because think about the school loans, for instance, that we have that help people. The government is giving out, school fees. But if I can pay school fees and I still cannot get devices, you're in the university and you cannot get devices to use, you can't pay for airtime, you might as well just be at home, right? So they say they setback. So there has to be other ways. Olaro, did you have anything to add here?
Well, I would say from the public sector, majorly, government finances the education. Yes. So there's really no room for us to say we want to go and take loans. So, but one privilege we've enjoyed over time is because there's this system that monitors how government public servants get paid. So sometimes we've had private organizations that are into tech products walk up to us. I remember the first tablet I got, I paid over a year. Yes. And that was as far back as 2014. Yes. So they can monitor, like you said, there's this facility to track, because we have this system that pays that. So when they go to, it's called Oracle. When you get to Oracle and you want to track this person's, there's a way it can be tracked. And it's still going on right now. But it's just that we need to encourage more teachers to, have this conscious effort to get devices, tech tools that will help them. For example, I have 3 laptops. Someone will ask me, what do you need 3 laptops for? I use them for different things.
Tech bro teacher.
So no, seriously, I have a colleague that
iron one. There are some that I don't take out at all.
Yes, I don't take out.
Just stay.
I have a colleague that has a virtual box that he uses in his class. He's one of a kind. I'm very sure that I might be the only one that has
A
public school teacher has a virtual box that takes to class, and his students put it on sometimes when he's teaching to just explore in the classroom. If we have such, such private organizations, partner with government, saying, okay, we want to come to your public schools. We know your teachers are not interested in getting devices, tech devices. Give us the opportunity to get there. But, most times it will always be at their risk, because government will tell you that if a teacher doesn't pay you back,
you can't hold the government accountable.
You can't hold us accountable. But if the government can say, okay, we want to encourage our teachers to be techy.
And what encourages the teacher to put their own finance on the line because of the students, knowing that he also has to pay for food and his accommodation and his transport fare, and he says, okay, my next goal now is to buy a phone or a laptop so I can teach effectively when my own children have not eaten at home. So it's a very dicey balance that needs to be really catered for.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that we need more private organizations to, come to public schools and see how they can partner with them. Let's see how we can encourage teachers to get tech devices. We know that for us, like you said, if we have structures that monitor credibility or credit scores of people when they get things, for the public sector is easy. You can always go back, and trace whosoever has gotten such products.
Yes,
and
it's impact.
Yes, but
I don't want to cut you off.
Okay.
Something just came to my mind, and it's trying to. Maybe I'm thinking how you give something with one hand and use the other hand to collect it back. But I'm thinking when you have organizations who would donate, because we're saying how can we ensure that, more institutions, more individuals are supported with the basic infrastructure to access EdTech. And you have maybe schools who, you give them 100, 200 devices and they're locked up somewhere.
Okay.
Right? How about we're also instituting ways of monitoring use? And schools know that if I give you this device and you're not using it, I will come back and take it. Okay. And I will look for someone else who... Do you think it's a model that would work? I know that we are very religious people in this part of the world, but do you think is something? Because right here, what we're trying to do right now is thinking about collaborative models that can help to bridge the infrastructural gap. And it cannot just be always give, provide.
Yes.
It is if we give you.
What's the outcome?
What's the outcome? So if I give you 100 devices, if I give you 200 tabs, and they're just in the box, and you don't hear monitors are coming, and that's when you bring them out and you arrange them, and students are just sitting down. There has to be models. And really, these are the things we need to talk about this month. What do we have to do? How can we become more strict? Or how do we think about more models? We're talking about the credit score system. Would that work for schools? Would that work for individuals? Larry, anything you want to say as we begin to wrap up?
Being strict, people always find a way around it because if they see that you're trying to punish, they will always find their ways to make things look like what they are not. But I think if we can incentivize it. So, for example, let's say you gave 5 schools in a district IT laboratory. One beautiful way to engage them is like maybe organize a tournament about software coding. Give them content that, within the next 3 months, not 3 months so far to monitor. After a whole month, we are coming back to do a general, maybe competition around robotics coding. Something like that.
Isn't that more money to even organize the competition?
No, if I'm talking from the government perspective now. For private sector, most schools some schools want to have the infrastructure to brag. Our school has these projectors and this and that and that. When the parent is coming, they show the parents, oh, it's beautiful. And after the parents are gone, turn it off and light. But for public schools, they don't have anybody to show apart from monitoring team. So they rather just lock it up there in the dust until when there's monitoring.
Yeah.
But for the public sector, if there's a proper engagement, meaning that you literally create models where it really engage the staff and the student to create things, and there's a reward for it. People love rewards. They might really take it up and, let's see if this thing really works.
Well, let me say something on that. Okay, for example now, most government schools in Lagos, we have this robotic kit that the government bought and gave to schools.
Beautiful.
And so I think in 6 months, government will come and say there's a competition.
Beautiful.
Whichever school wins will go on to represent the country, the state somewhere outside the country.
That's
like last year, my district won and they went to Turkey. So it's a good incentive to, keep those kids working.
And the next principal to want the school to win.
So if that doesn't come in, the kit will just be somewhere with dust. And whenever they come out, do you have robotic kits? They blow the dust from the kit. So like he said, MTN organized a program recently. It's called MTN ASAP Foundation with NDLEA. There's this elite program. My school was part of that project. And what they did, they gave us modems, they gave us data, and so monitored how we used the platform. And at the end of the day, schools all over Nigeria were part of it. Schools that didn't participate well, at the end of the day, were not given incentives. Schools that they saw participation on their engagement. They came to the schools, gave the students books, gave them bags, gave some of the teachers things too. So that's a good way to also monitor.
Incentivize instead of punishing.
Okay.
So that might be a better approach.
So not punitive.
Punitive.
But I don't think Nigerians need to be pushed a little bit.
Let's find the
So
way around it.
punitive measures will not work. It has to be thinking about how to incentivize it,
them, yes.
but not incentivizing in a way that you don't make them, if you don't incentivize us, it won't work.
Yes.
Because that's, happens. So this has been, an interesting conversation. And I can promise you, our listeners, that this month is going to be packed with so much insights on, what foundational digital infrastructure is to EdTech. And we will be discovering models that we hope the telcos, the financial institutions, the educational institutions, and you, the users yourself, are willing to adopt to see that more learners get access to EdTech platforms and more teachers are supported to use technology to improve teaching and learning. So thank you so much, Olarirewaju, for giving us your time again this week. It was great having you here.
Thank you
And
so
to
much.
you, our listeners, I know you have enjoyed this episode this week. I would love to hear from you. What other ways, we've talked about very interesting models for ensuring that schools or individuals get access to EdTech. I'd love to hear from you. What other models can we come up with? Can you come up with? Who knows who is listening? If you share your thoughts, I promise to read them next week. And we could also brood over them to see how feasible they are or not. Would love to hear from you. Send us an SMS or a WhatsApp message 0703 165 0809. And until I come your way, same time next week, remember that the conversation does not end here. You can listen to us on Spotify at EdTech Mondays Nigeria. You could also watch the replay on YouTube at CcHUB Africa. And we have our WhatsApp and Telegram channels, EdTech Mondays Nigeria, when you can join the continuing conversations. I remain your host, Chinyelu Akwa. Continue using technology to push the boundaries on education. It's bye for now.
It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CcHUB.